You thought you were doing everything right. Every morning, you'd walk into that warm little living room, the curtains half open, sunlight resting gently on the carpet, the soft creak of her rocking chair, and you'd hand her a tall glass of something you believed was keeping her alive, keeping her strong. She'd smile, thank you, sip slowly, and you'd feel safe. You told yourself, this is love. You believed you were protecting her. But the day the doctor called you in, the world tilted. He didn't speak in riddles. He looked at you with the kind of heaviness that makes your chest tighten, and said, "She's losing muscle, fast. The very thing you're giving her is quietly destroying her strength." You stood there, frozen, as if the floor had shifted under your feet. Because all those mornings you thought you were saving her, you were unknowingly helping her fade. And that moment brands itself into your memory, the sound of the monitor beeping, the sharp smell of antiseptic, the hollow silence when you walk back into her empty living room later that night. If your mom is over 60, if your dad is, this could be their story too. Because what you think is helping, may be silently harming. You don't see it happening. You don't notice the way they grip the table to stand up. You don't notice how they pause halfway up the stairs to catch their breath. You don't see the fear in their eyes when they almost lose balance in the hallway. It creeps in quietly, muscle melting away, bones weakening, energy fading like the light at dusk, and no one warns you until it's almost too late. But there's something they didn't tell you. Something most families never hear until it's far too late. One simple food, hidden in plain sight, that can help rebuild the very thing age is stealing. And it could change everything. Before you scroll away, think about this. If this video could be the reason they stay strong enough to stand, to walk, to live on their own, and you ignore it, what will you tell yourself when you watch them struggle to rise from a chair? If you don't subscribe now, and they lose what they can't get back, will you be able to forgive yourself? Subscribe to Goldenera Senior Health. Because silence won't save them, but knowledge might. We were standing in the kitchen that evening, voices low but sharp, like knives wrapped in cloth. She was leaning on the counter, arms folded, eyes flashing. "She just needs more carbs," my sister said, opening a box of crackers. "She can barely lift her arms," I shot back, watching the way our aunt's hands trembled as she tried to butter her toast at the table. The radio hummed softly, pretending nothing was wrong, while we stood there pretending we weren't terrified. For weeks we had watched it happen in fragments. At first, it was little things, a pause halfway across the living room, a sigh after getting dressed. Then came the moments that cut deeper. The day she tripped over the edge of the rug and caught herself just in time. The night she whispered that her legs felt hollow. And the morning she stayed in bed, saying the stairs felt taller than they used to. We told ourselves it was just age. We wanted to believe she was simply tired. But in the quiet, when she wasn't looking, we saw it, the way her muscles were thinning, the way her strength was slipping out of her like sand through fingers. The woman who used to dance barefoot in the kitchen now held onto the table to stand up. Fear became the shadow in every room. We stopped arguing and started whispering. What if she falls? What if she doesn't get back up? What if this is how it begins, the slow unraveling, the quiet slide from living to merely existing? When the doctor finally sat us down, it felt like the world narrowed to the sound of his voice. He spoke gently, but the words landed like stones. "She's showing signs of sarcopenia," he said. "Age-related muscle loss." The phrase sounded clinical, distant, but the meaning was devastating. Her body was slowly consuming its own strength. And if nothing changed soon, she could lose her independence completely. I remember looking at her through the glass of the exam room, her hands folded in her lap, her shoulders drawn in as if she were trying to make herself smaller. She looked so fragile. And I kept thinking, what would you do if this was your mom? Would you watch her fade, hoping it's nothing? Would you risk finding out too late that what you thought was helping was actually feeding the problem? The doctor said something then that lodged itself in my mind. He said her recovery could start with something shockingly simple, something most of us ignore at breakfast. He didn't say what it was right away. He just smiled a little, as though he knew we wouldn't believe him if he told us too soon. It felt absurd, almost insulting, that something so small could stand against something so terrifying. But desperation has a way of making you listen. And he was right. I watched it happen. I watched her hands steady again, watched her rise from the chair without pushing off the armrests, watched her walk down the hallway without holding the wall. All because of one change. One thing so ordinary it almost felt like magic. And she's not the only one. A retired painter in Spain had gone through the same decline, his hands so weak he could no longer hold a brush steady. He thought his art was over. But within weeks of adding this same simple thing to his mornings, his grip came back. Slowly at first, then stronger each day. Now he paints again, his hands sure and steady, his canvases alive with color. If you believe your parents deserve dignity, prove it. Subscribe. Picture the breakfast table on an ordinary morning. A single slice of toast rests on the plate, thin steam curling off its surface. It looks harmless, even comforting. But as your parent chews slowly, what you can't see is what's missing. No protein. No collagen. No building blocks to replace what time is quietly taking away. They finish their toast, sip their coffee, and their body keeps breaking itself down to stay alive. Now imagine the same table, but different. Instead of toast, there's a warm bowl of slow-cooked stew, rich with tender meat and soft vegetables. Protein glows in every spoonful, collagen threads invisibly through every bite. This meal does something the toast never could. It gives the body the raw material to rebuild. It feeds the structure, not just the hunger. Walk down the grocery aisle and you'll see why this matters. Bright packages call out from the shelves, cereal, crackers, granola bars, all promising heart-healthy and low-fat. But look closer, barely a trace of protein, no hint of collagen. They fill the stomach but leave the body starving where it matters most. Meanwhile, tucked low on the shelf, almost ignored, sit the real treasures. Bone-in cuts, eggs, Greek yogurt, canned sardines, slow-cooked shank meat. They look plain. They don't shout for attention. But they carry what an aging body is begging for. Step into a community exercise class and you'll see the gap. A row of seniors lifts light dumbbells, their arms trembling, faces tight with effort. Some can barely raise the weight. Not because they don't try, but because their muscles have nothing left to work with. The body cannot build strength from air. It needs bricks, and those bricks are protein and collagen. Collagen is the scaffolding of the body. It's the ropes that hold muscle to bone, the net that keeps skin firm, the cushion between every joint. And sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, is what happens when the scaffolding starts to collapse. You can keep pouring protein into the system like water into a bucket. But if the bucket is cracked, the water just leaks out. That's what aging does, it cracks the bucket. Collagen is how you patch it. Without it, everything you add slips away. Think of it like a bank account. Every year after 60, the body makes more withdrawals than deposits. Protein is the paycheck, collagen is the vault. You can keep earning. But if the vault walls are crumbling, the savings never last. That's why people say, she eats well, but she keeps getting weaker. Because the problem isn't the paycheck. It's the vault. There's no magic cure for this. No pill that erases decades overnight. But there is something more powerful than magic. Consistency. Feeding the body what it needs every single day. Even when it seems too small to matter. Because small is how strength returns. One quiet meal at a time. I saw it with her. And I saw it again with a grandmother in Canada. She used to start her mornings with a bowl of sweet cereal, light and colorful and empty. She told herself she was eating healthy. But her hands shook when she buttoned her coat. Her knees trembled when she climbed her porch steps. She thought she was just getting old. Until she made one change. She traded the cereal for a warm bowl of collagen-rich stew every morning. At first, nothing seemed different. Then the changes came slowly, like the tide returning. Her grip steadied. Her legs felt firmer. She carried groceries from the car without stopping to rest. 8 weeks later, she said her body felt like it had finally stopped slipping away. If you'd rather scroll past than protect the person who raised you, comment why. These habits are quietly stealing strength from the people you love. They don't look dangerous. They look ordinary. They look like care. And that's what makes them so hard to see. Take the fruit-only breakfast. A bright bowl of berries, melon, and sliced banana. It looks clean, refreshing, healthy. You tell yourself it's light and full of vitamins. But inside the body, it's something else. A sudden sugar spike that burns fast, leaving no protein, no collagen, no building blocks to protect their muscles. They feel full for an hour, and then the crash comes: fatigue, weakness, the quiet fading of strength they don't even notice until it's gone. The fix isn't to take away the fruit. It's to anchor it with something real: eggs, Greek yogurt, even a few spoonfuls of collagen-rich stew from the night before. Fruit becomes fuel when it's not left to stand alone. Then there's the morning coffee ritual. They wake up, shuffle to the kitchen, and cradle that warm mug like it's life itself. They sip slowly, savoring the silence. But noon comes and still no food has touched their plate. Their body has been awake for hours, pulling protein from their own muscles just to keep going. They think they're saving time, staying slim. What they're doing is quietly dismantling their strength. The quick fix is simple: something small with the coffee. Half a boiled egg. A slice of leftover roast. Even a bit of collagen stirred into the coffee itself. It doesn't have to be big, it just has to be there. Some go further. They avoid all meat because they think it feels heavy. They say they want to stay light. But light becomes frail. Without meat, or any other collagen-rich source, the body runs out of the material that holds it together. Joints start to ache. Skin thins. Muscles flatten like old cushions. The fix doesn't mean piles of steak. It can be gentle: soft fish, slow-cooked shank, tender chicken, bone broth sipped like tea. Light can also mean strong, if it carries collagen. And then there's the silent harm of too much cardio without resistance. You see them walking every day, miles at a time, proud and determined. But their legs are thinning. Their arms hang soft. Cardio burns energy, but without resistance, it also burns the muscle they desperately need. The fix is balance. Keep the walks, but add something simple: light resistance bands, chair stands, wall push-ups while waiting for the kettle to boil. It's not about stopping movement. It's about making sure the movement builds instead of breaks. Even the so-called healthy protein bars can be traps. Shiny wrappers promise energy and strength, but inside they're packed with sugar that stirs up inflammation, blocking collagen from doing its job. They feel like they're fueling their body, but they're feeding the fire that eats away at it. The fix is to read the label. Find bars that list real protein sources first, or skip the bar and reach for real food: boiled eggs, yogurt, or a small piece of chicken. And maybe the most deceptive of all, the habit of taking calcium alone. They line up the pills on the counter like soldiers, proud of their discipline. But calcium without the cofactors, without collagen, without the protein net to hold it, ends up scattered, doing little for the bones it was meant to guard. Bones aren't stone. They're living tissue, and they need a structure to build on. The fix is to pair it: calcium with protein, with vitamin C, with collagen. The building blocks must arrive together or the walls never stand. I watched an elderly bookstore owner live this transformation. She had grown unsteady, her hands trembling as she passed books across the counter, her steps slow between the aisles. She thought her time was running out. But all she changed was one thing: she stopped skipping breakfast and began starting her day with collagen-rich soup instead of her usual fruit and coffee. Within days, her hand steadied. Her walk quickened. By the second week, she was climbing the library ladder again, shelving books like she used to. Strength came back quietly, the way it had left. If you're still not subscribed, are you okay letting your parents do these every day while you stay silent? Let's talk about what can actually help them rebuild. Because fear without direction only leaves people frozen. These aren't fads. They're quiet, steady tools. And when they show up on the plate every day, they give the body the raw material it's been begging for. Start with bone broth. It looks humble, a clear, golden liquid simmered from bones and connective tissue. But what makes it powerful is how easily the body accepts it. The collagen inside is already broken down from the long cooking process, so older digestion doesn't have to fight to absorb it. It slips straight into the bloodstream, ready to repair joints, skin, and the scaffolding of muscles. Studies have shown that regular collagen intake can slow the loss of lean tissue and even rebuild it over time. It's gentle on the stomach, soothing on the throat, and perfect for fragile teeth. The best time to serve it is mid-morning or as a warm starter before dinner, so it doesn't compete with heavier foods. But it matters to watch the sodium. Store-bought versions can be loaded with salt. Homemade is better. Simmer marrow bones, onion, and carrots for hours until the kitchen fills with quiet warmth. Strain, cool, and store in jars. A small cup a day can slowly stitch back what age has unraveled. Then come eggs. They're simple, familiar, and often underestimated. Each egg carries high-quality protein and amino acids like glycine and proline that the body uses to build collagen. Research shows that seniors who eat protein early in the day preserve more muscle than those who eat it late. Eggs are soft, easy to chew, and pair well with vitamin C-rich fruits to spark collagen production. They can be boiled, scrambled, or baked into soft frittatas with spinach. But watch cholesterol levels if heart disease runs in the family. 2 a day is a safe ceiling for most. Serve them at breakfast to break the overnight fast and stop the body from breaking down its own muscle for fuel. Greek yogurt is another quiet ally. It combines protein and calcium in the same bite, which helps muscles pull on strong bones instead of brittle ones. Its thick texture is easier for seniors to manage than thin milk, and the probiotics support gut health, important when digestion slows with age. Pair it with berries or citrus to bring in vitamin C, the spark that turns protein into collagen. Choose plain, unsweetened versions to avoid sugar spikes that block collagen synthesis. Be cautious with lactose intolerance. Start with small servings and look for lactose-free brands if needed. A bowl of Greek yogurt mid-afternoon can keep muscles fed until dinner without straining digestion. Sardines often get overlooked, tucked in quiet rows on grocery shelves, but they are packed with omega-3 fatty acids and tiny edible bones rich in calcium. Omega-3s calm the low-level inflammation that slowly eats away at collagen in joints, while the protein supports muscle repair. They are soft, easy to chew, and don't require cooking. Just open, drain, and serve on whole grain toast or mashed with avocado. They do carry a strong flavor, so starting with lemon juice or herbs helps. Watch for sodium if blood pressure is a concern, and limit portions if on blood-thinning medications because of the omega-3 content. A small serving 2 or 3 times a week can quietly strengthen joints from the inside out. And then, the one food that changed everything for her. Collagen-rich beef shank stew. It doesn't shout for attention. It doesn't come in a shiny package or a powder. But inside this slow-cooked dish is exactly what an aging body is losing: collagen and protein together, woven into every tender bite. The long simmer breaks down the connective tissue into gelatin, which the body can use immediately to patch and reinforce its own. It feeds the muscles while strengthening the framework that holds them. And it's soft, perfect for tired jaws and fragile teeth. Prep is simple. Place beef shanks in a slow cooker with onions, carrots, celery, garlic, and water. Let it cook low and slow until the meat slips from the bone. Portion into small containers and freeze. Each reheated bowl becomes a quiet repair kit. Serve it with a slice of whole grain bread or alongside steamed greens to round the meal. There's no flashy trick here, just steady rebuilding, one spoonful at a time. I watched a retired Canadian librarian follow this path. She had grown timid on her feet, her balance unsteady, her world shrinking to the few rooms she trusted herself to walk through. She committed to 6 weeks of this regimen: broth in the mornings, eggs at breakfast, yogurt midday, sardines twice a week, and shank stew for dinner. The change came slowly, then suddenly. Her steps lengthened. Her voice grew brighter. One afternoon, she called to say she had carried her groceries up the stairs without stopping. Her strength didn't roar back. It returned like dawn, quiet, certain, unstoppable. If you'd be proud to see your parents stand tall again, this is your moment. Subscribe. Change begins with what shows up in the kitchen. Not once, not as a burst of effort, but as a rhythm that becomes part of life. Strength is not built in sudden leaps, it returns in quiet, repeated steps. It starts with a simple list. Once a week, write it down before the grocery trip. Bone-in cuts for broth, beef shanks for stew, eggs, Greek yogurt, sardines, citrus, leafy greens, oats, olive oil. Not everything has to be bought every week, just enough to keep the cycle going. The list removes the guesswork, so emotion and hesitation don't decide what ends up in the cart. Choose one day, Sunday works best, and make it the reset day. Fill the house with the smell of slow cooking. Place the shanks in the slow cooker with onions, carrots, celery, and water. Let them simmer while you prepare jars of bone broth, boil a dozen eggs, and portion Greek yogurt into small glass containers. Label them for the week ahead. When the moments of fatigue come, when cooking feels too hard, the work is already done. A warm bowl just needs reheating, a jar just needs opening. Pairing meals with movement builds the bridge from nutrition to function. After the morning broth, set a chair in the center of the living room. Have them stand up and sit down 10 times, slowly, using their legs rather than their hands. While the shank stew simmers at dinner, loop resistance bands over the door handle and guide them through gentle rows to wake the muscles of the back and arms. 5 minutes is enough to remind the body it's meant to be used. Protein repairs what resistance signals the body to keep. Without the signal, the protein becomes fuel. With the signal, it becomes strength. This doesn't have to drain the wallet. Buy bones and shanks in bulk from local markets, where they cost far less than packaged cuts. Ask the butcher for the leftover marrow bones they usually discard. Choose store-brand Greek yogurt in large tubs rather than single cups. Use dried herbs and frozen vegetables to flavor the meals without wasting fresh produce that spoils too fast. The body does not need expensive superfoods. It needs the old, quiet foods that once built entire generations. There's space for culture in this too. Turn the beef shank stew into a Spanish-style cocido, rich with paprika and chickpeas. Serve the bone broth as a Canadian winter soup, thick with barley and root vegetables. Fold flaked sardines into warm rice or mash them into avocado toast. What matters is not the style. It's the pattern. Collagen and protein woven into every day until it becomes as ordinary as brushing teeth. A former teacher I know found her life again this way. She used to sit at her window each morning, watching neighbors walk their dogs while hers lay sleeping at her feet. Her legs felt too shaky, her breath too thin. She thought those walks were gone forever. But she began this quiet rhythm: broth in the morning, stew at night, eggs at dawn, yogurt mid-afternoon, a few slow chair stands after breakfast. At first, she needed help just to set the leash on the hook by the door. By the second month, she was walking to the corner and back. At 3 months, she called me, breathless but laughing, saying she had taken the long route through the park. Her dog wagged beside her, and her voice carried the sound of someone coming back to herself. This is how strength returns. Not in noise or rush, but in small meals prepared in quiet kitchens, and in footsteps taken one after the other, until they stop feeling impossible. Hydration sounds simple, almost too small to matter. But you can see the difference in their lips, cracked at the corners, and in their joints, stiff like dry hinges. Without enough water, the collagen you give them can't do its work. It can't glide through their system or cushion their joints. Every movement becomes friction. A glass beside the bed, another on the table, a quiet reminder to sip between meals. That's how the body remembers it's still meant to flow. Then there is sunlight. 10 minutes in the morning, soft warmth brushing their skin as they sit on the porch or by a bright window. That gentle light wakes vitamin D from its sleep, telling their bones to hold on to calcium, telling their muscles to stay awake. It steadies their mood too, turning the fog behind their eyes into something clear again. Not the harsh midday sun, just enough to paint their skin in gold and whisper, "You are still here." Sleep is the silent builder. It's when the body repairs everything torn during the day. But so many drift in and out, never falling deep enough to heal. Guide them into stillness, dim lights after dinner, soft blankets, no glowing screens humming beside their bed. Let their breath slow and deepen. Let their mind slip below the noise. Because every night they spend in true rest is a night their body quietly rebuilds itself. Balance can be taught again. It does not vanish, it only goes quiet from neglect. While the television murmurs in the background, have them rise from their chair and sit again during the commercials. Hold the counter and stand on one foot for a count of 10, then the other. Tiny drills that wake the nerves in their feet. Remind their brain where their body is. Teach their muscles how to catch them before they fall. Even posture matters. Watch them slump forward at the table, chest caved in, breath shallow. Then gently roll their shoulders back, lift their chin, let their lungs fill again. Standing tall tells the body it is still strong. Hunched posture whispers defeat. Correcting it, even for minutes at a time, keeps the spine awake and the ribs open for air. I think of a quiet grandfather who once sat silent at family dinners, shoulders folded inward, eyes half closed. His daughter began these habits with him, water by his side, 10 minutes of sun, deep sleep, balance drills during commercials, posture checks at the table. Week by week, the gray around him lifted. He started humming at breakfast. One evening they found him at the piano, playing softly, his back straight, his fingers steady on the keys. His spark had returned, not in a blaze, but in a steady glow. Keep it going. Because change fades if it isn't marked. Use a journal, just a few lines a day. Walked to the mailbox unassisted. Stood from the couch without pushing off. Climbed the stairs without pausing. Watched the winds collect like pebbles in a jar. Once a month, set a chair in the center of the room and count how many times they can rise and sit in 30 seconds. Write it down. Watch the number grow. Take progress photos, not for vanity, but for proof that strength returns. Keep them private, for the days they forget how far they've come. And know when to seek help. If they lose weight rapidly, stumble often, or seem weaker despite the routine, bring their doctor into the circle. Sometimes hidden illnesses steal what nutrition tries to give. Catching it early saves what's been built. This is how my aunt avoided the nursing home. Not a miracle. Not luck. Just slow, measured steps and proof written down to silence the fear that whispered she was still fading. I saw the same with a man who once leaned on a cane just to reach his mailbox. He followed this plan, meals, movement, habits, and he tracked it, day by day. 4 months later, he called me from the grocery store parking lot. No cane. Both arms filled with bags. His voice carried a new weight, pride, steady and solid. Because this is what's at stake. 2 futures, standing side by side. In one, they are at the stove, stirring a pot, laughing at a joke they can barely finish because they're too busy grinning. In the other, they are alone in a dim room, staring at the floor because standing feels like climbing a mountain. Strength or silence? Independence or decline? The path is decided by what happens in the quiet moments no one sees. A neighbor chose silence. He told himself it was just age. He waited. By the time he tried to fight back, the muscles were gone. His legs no longer answered him. He never walked unassisted again. And the grief in his daughter's face was the kind that leaves a mark on everyone who sees it. Collagen isn't magic. But ignoring it is a gamble. And time always wins against those who wait too long. If you love them enough to want that future, subscribe, or comment why you won't.